Have you ever seen a ghost in your own home? So not the kind that rattles chains, but the kind that wears your wife's perfume and sleeps in your bed. I saw one. It was the ghost of my marriage, and it was standing right in front of me, reflected in the cold. It's a dark screen of her phone at 2 a.m. The screen was a tiny, glowing tombstone, and on it was a name I knew as well as my own, Mark. My best friend, my brother. Her screen lit up again, a single line of text that felt like a razor blade slicing through the quiet dark of our Chicago brownstone. It wasn't just a message. It was an epitaph for the man I used to be. I stood there frozen in the doorway, the cold wood floor beneath my feet no colder than the ice forming in my veins. I knew in that instant that nothing would ever be the same again. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. It had started subtly, like a crack in a foundation you don't notice until the walls start to bow. Sarah, my wife of 10 years, became distant. Our nightly talks, once filled with laughter and plans for our future on the North Shore, dwindled into monosyllabic grunts, while she scrolled endlessly through her phone. Just tired from work, she'd say, her voice flat. But her eyes, the ones I fell in love with over a shared deep-dish pizza at Lou Malnati's, were different. They were guarded, opaque. She started having late nights with the girls and emergency work deadlines that always seemed to coincide with Mark, my best friend since college, also being unavailable. The two people I trusted most in the world were becoming shadows. The humiliation was a slow burn. It began at our anniversary dinner at a steakhouse on Rush Street. She took a call, her back to me, her voice a low, intimate whisper. I saw her reflection in the window, a small, secret smile playing on her lips. A smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. She came back to the table, her face a mask of indifference. It was just my mother, she lied, the words slipping out so easily it made my stomach clench. The steak tasted like ash in my mouth. I was a prop in my own life, a placeholder in my own marriage. They must have felt so untouchable, so clever, laughing at the fool who paid the mortgage and believed their pathetic lies. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I'd come home early from a business trip to surprise her. The silence in our home on Orchard Street was heavy, unnatural. Her car was in the driveway, but the house felt empty.
Ow.
A man's voice, not mine. I walked up the stairs, each step a lifetime, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the crack I saw them, Sarah and Mark, my wife and my best friend, tangled in the sheets of the bed we shared. The world didn't just stop, shattered into a million silent, screaming pieces. I backed away, a ghost in my own home, the sound of my own choked breath deafening in my ears. I drove to a desolate parking garage overlooking the Chicago River, the city lights blurring through my tears. The loyal man, the loving husband, died in that car. Something else was born in his place, something cold, patient, and strategic. From that moment on, I was a different person. I went home, and when Sarah finally walked through the door hours later, reeking of cheap lies, I smiled. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. "Hey, honey, missed you," I said, my voice steady. The game had begun. I started gathering proof. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop, who operated out of a dusty office in the Loop. He was expensive, but the photos he delivered were priceless. Sarah and Mark kissing in a booth at a dimly lit bar, checking into a sleazy hotel near O'Hare, holding hands in Lincoln Park like a pair of teenagers. I bought a voice-activated recorder and left it under the passenger seat of her car. The recordings were brutal. Their laughter, their plans, their mockery of me. "He's so clueless," I heard Sarah say, her voice dripping with arrogant disdain. "He'd believe anything I tell him." Each word was another nail in their coffin. I started setting the traps. I knew Sarah had been siphoning money from our joint savings account. A nest egg for her new life, as she called it on the recording. I quietly moved the bulk of our assets into a new account in my name only, leaving just enough to make her feel secure. I contacted a shark of a divorce lawyer, a woman whose reputation was legendary. We met in secret, poring over the evidence, the photos, the bank statements, the audio files. She smiled, a predator sensing a kill. "Mr. Evans," she said, her voice like gravel, "we are going to dismantle her." The final piece of the plan was social. Sarah's parents were hosting their 40th anniversary party, a huge affair at a lavish ballroom downtown. Everyone would be their family, friends, colleagues, the perfect stage for a grand finale. The night of the party was electric with anticipation. I played the part of the doting husband, holding Sarah's hand, my touch making her flinch. Mark was there, of course, giving me a smug pat on the back. "Good to see you, man," he said, his eyes glinting. He had no idea he was a dead man walking. After the main course, her father stood up to give a toast. As he finished, I raised my glass. "If I could just say a few words," I began, my voice ringing through the silent room. I spoke of love, of trust, of 10 years of marriage. Then my tone shifted. But sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who betray us most deeply. A projector screen behind me, she had been showing a slideshow of her parents, flickered to life. The first image appeared, Sarah and Mark, locked in an embrace outside the hotel. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Another photo, then another. The audio began to play, Sarah's voice, clear as a bell, mocking me. "He's so clueless." The room was a sea of shocked faces. Sarah's face was ashen, her mother was sobbing. Her father, a proud, powerful man, looked at her with pure, unadulterated disgust. She and Mark stood frozen, exposed and utterly destroyed under the glare of 100 pairs of eyes. I placed a single manila envelope on the table in front of her. "My lawyer will be in touch," I whispered, and walked out of the ballroom without looking back. The divorce was swift and brutal. She got nothing. Her family disowned her. Her friends vanished. Mark lost his job when the scandal hit his company. They were ruined, left with nothing but the wreckage of their own making. Sold the brownstone and moved away from Chicago, seeking silence. Sometimes late at night I think about her. Not with anger, not anymore. Just a hollow, empty ache. I destroyed her life, but in doing so, I had to burn down my own. The last I heard, she was working as a waitress in some forgotten diner off a highway in a state I'd never visit. The end.